Hey everyone, it's Alice. Welcome back to another GRE video. Today we're actually going to be talking about the much anticipated third video in my series on how to write an effective analyze and issue essay. If you haven't watched the first two, I will put a card to those up here, and they cover how to go from actually having a question to a full-on essay. And this video is going to be walking through the essay, talking about why I made certain choices and whether or not they actually turned out well. I'll also be talking about how I can actually improve my own essay so you can have an idea of what you can do to get a better score for you. If you're new here, I teach GRE on this platform. I do offer private tutoring as well, and you can get 30 minutes for free with the link in the description down below. On my first try, I got a 162 in verbal, a perfect score on math, and 5.5 out of 6, which is 98th percentile on the writing portion. So I am more than happy to talk to you about how you can improve your test-taking skills one-on-one. But if you're just into the free content, make sure you like and subscribe so you can get all of that on your YouTube homepage. Before we get into all the nitty-gritty of the actual essay itself, I want to go over the basic ideas of what I like to do when I write an issue essay. You can actually see some of the basic structural ideas that I outline here in this video about the Hamburger method that I use. But basically, anytime I write an essay or anytime I write a supporting paragraph, I want to keep this general structure, which is the first sentence or the first paragraph is going to be my introduction. That sets up my body paragraphs, so those are going to be the different fixings that you have for the burger. And then you are going to plug in the bottom with a conclusion. So essentially that has something on the top, your body, and then the end. You always want to make sure that your introduction and your conclusion make sense and that they match, and they kind of hold in the rest of your body paragraph. You can see more about it again in that Hamburger method video. So with that in mind, I will jump into the actual essay itself. You can see the prompt here, but if you'd like to follow along on your own, you can actually find the link to this essay in the description down below. Okay, so let's look at the prompt. It says, to understand the most important characteristics of a society, one must study its major cities. Write a response in which you discuss the extent to which you agree or disagree with the statement and explain your reasoning for the position you take. In developing and supporting your position, you should consider ways in which the statement might or might not hold true and explain how these considerations shape your position. So with that in mind, let's look at my introduction. In general, I believe that cities are a strong representation of a country. By studying the complex components of cities, one can gain a general yet nuanced understanding of how countries are constructed, what values they hold dear, and how they try to improve and grow with their citizens. So I actually am pretty proud of this introduction because it shows my position clearly, but it also shows a little bit of nuance. So it's not just that cities are incredibly important, but that they give you insight into how things work and give you context for all of it. In addition, you can see the second sentence that I have, starting with, by studying the complex components of cities, I actually outline the topics for each of the body paragraphs. This is really useful because as a reader, you know exactly what you're going to be getting into for the rest of the body paragraphs. This is a trick that I recommend to everybody just to make sure that when you're writing, you are keeping yourself on track, but also for the reader, you can keep everything very organized and they know exactly what to expect as they read along. I actually have a video talking more about how to write a really great introduction paragraph for the issue essay, and you can see the card for that up here. So moving on to the first paragraph, we'll read through it and then I'll give comments. While cities do not tell the whole story of a country, they are typically home to most of a country's population. By this nature, cities can present a wide variety of people and their lifestyles. Families, single people, older people, politicians, and even many powerful institutions often take hold in a city and contribute to them. By studying not only the variety of people that live and work in a metropolis, but also the interactions between them, one can gain an idea of daily life and intangible practices such as social norms, power dynamics, and political workings. So I do a few things in this paragraph that I tend to use a lot. The first sentence is actually a short negation. So I say, while this is true, cities are still a really important part of a country. Now, the reason I do it this way is because I acknowledge the other side, that cities don't tell the whole story of a country, but I really set up the rest of the paragraph to focus on why they're still incredibly important. And in this way, I talk about the other side, but I don't give any focus to it. In my third sentence, I actually also do something that is really difficult sometimes, which is I elaborate and give details on an example without going into what I call excessive speculation or getting carried away by the example. So here I list a lot of different things that you can see in a city, like families to politicians and powerful institutions, but I don't get carried away in that, and my next sentence brings the entire paragraph back to talk specifically about cities, metropolises, and why they're important. This last sentence is also really crucial because I directly address how cities are important in understanding a country, particularly because you never want to assume that your reader or your listener knows what you're talking about. In that sense, you always want to tie what you say back to the prompt so that it's very clear. So with that, let's look at the next paragraph. So this one is slightly longer. It says, additionally, cities hold the key to many cultural and historical artifacts. While these artifacts and structures are usually found in more remote locations, objects and paintings from ancient times are often stored in museums and cultural spaces in cities. This is because countries want their citizens and their visitors to better understand where they come from, so they value being able to show them off in a central location, exhibits that are central to cities. For example, in my hometown and my current city, the most important cultural artifacts are gathered in museums located downtown with plenty of public transportation, indicating to habitants and visitors alike which parts of a culture this country wants to highlight. Furthermore, cities are often strong reflectors of tradition, such as large festivals, decorations, and celebrations that draw strongly from a country's history. So in this paragraph, I'm really trying to highlight the cultural and historical significance of cities, but I think I fall short in a few ways. Two things that I don't really like are the fact that my example of my hometown and current city, these are really unclear. I don't actually talk about what these artifacts are or what their importance is. I also just talk about my hometown and current city, and it's unclear if those are the same city or if those are different cities, which takes away a little bit from their strength. I also do something here at the end, which is introduce a totally new idea, and it's relatively related to what I've been talking about in the entire paragraph, but it is completely new and I don't elaborate on it at all. So here when I talk about being strong reflectors of tradition, this is really only proximally related to cultural and historical artifacts. So it seems that the first part of my paragraph is talking about one thing and then this last sentence is talking about another. I really don't want to do this, and what I should have done instead is if I wanted to talk about cities being strong reflectors of tradition, to just make that into a separate small paragraph, maybe 3 sentences at the most. So in general, this paragraph could have been a lot stronger, but I do think I have strong points and that what I do write here is relatively clear. With that, let's look at the next paragraph. So it says, Lastly, cities are often the site where modernity and innovation are born. The way that countries evolve and adapt are often first tested in cities to take advantage of existing infrastructure and volume of people. In addition, in certain cities are large corporations responsible for technological innovation and popularizing new ideas, so cities are the optimal site to understand how cities view problems. By looking at problem solving and examining the reasoning behind them that exist in cities, one can better understand how countries value certain problems over others and how they try to improve their current status. So here I'm really talking about priorities and future goals of cities. I think I do an okay job of trying to tie my point back to the prompt, which is about why studying cities is important, but I think I can definitely strengthen this. I don't really talk enough about why modernity and innovation are crucial to understanding a city and why those things are related to problem solving and a country's values. This is a really common mistake that a lot of people make, which is kind of assuming the relationship between different ideas that they talk about. So I really think that this can be strengthened just by adding a sentence or two in each area, specifically bridging the gap between all of these ideas. Other than that, it's not as weak as some paragraphs. Particularly because there is a clear logical flow. You can see exactly what I'm talking about, from why cities are the center of innovation and new ideas, and why that's important for understanding a country as a whole. So with that, let's look at the last paragraph. So in general, I recommend that the conclusion is relatively short. Here, it's slightly longer, which is not a huge deal. As we go through it, you will see why it's slightly longer. While understanding of a country can only come from a combination of many different facets of a society, such as politics, social norms, etc., and some countries are more diverse than others, cities provide a strong foundation for understanding a country. In cities, one can find diverse populations that manifest complex social relationships, history and tradition, and modernity and innovation that highlight a country's current state and their vision for the future. Those characteristics are crucial to forming an understanding of a country as a whole. As a result, cities must be studied if one is to understand a country. So here, even though the conclusion is long, you can see that I do some really great things here. In the beginning, I kind of include a small refute to talk about some of the weaknesses of only studying cities, but I then summarize the points that I made about social relationships, history and tradition, and modernity and innovation that are really important things to understand a country. And my last few sentences really tie everything together and address the prompt directly. In this case, I think it provides a really strong conclusion that makes the entire essay feel extremely strong, even though the previous paragraphs I personally feel have some drawbacks. If you're able to do this, you can actually see how much stronger your essay feels, even if you make some mistakes throughout, and even if you don't have examples for every single paragraph like I didn't in the previous paragraph. Now, by no means is this a perfect essay, but hopefully this gives you an idea of what I did well, what I didn't do well, and things that you can include in your future essays to make sure you get a higher score, and hopefully 4s, 5s, and 6s. Now, if you're looking for more information on writing essays, please feel free to contact me. You can find my contact info down below or on social media. I am more than willing to walk you step by step through your essay so you can understand how exactly to improve it. If you're still skeptical, I will show a review from one of my recent students right here. And thank you so much if you made it all the way to the end of this video. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you, and I'll see you later. Bye!